Nobody in the glittering world of football knew that behind Cristiano Ronaldo's ruthless ambition and cold, diamond-cut confidence, there was once a storm raging that no one could calm until she walked in. It wasn't the trophies, the billion-dollar endorsements, or the deafening roar of millions chanting his name that changed the shadows inside him. It was Georgina, the girl the world labeled a gold digger but who carried a secret heavy enough to break a man like him, or remake him into something no one ever imagined. Few know that the night Ronaldo first let her into his world, he made a choice that would bury a part of his old self forever, and the price he paid was something even he couldn't buy back. What did she say to him in that silence that changed the king of the pitch into a man who could cry behind closed doors and smile like a boy reborn in the morning? This is the secret story they never wanted you to hear. Long before the world snapped their photos in glittering cities or watched them whisper to each other at award shows, there was a night when Ronaldo sat alone in the back of his car, staring at the reflection of himself in the black window. He had everything, yet, for a moment, he felt like nothing. The world outside knew him as an untouchable icon, but inside, he was fighting demons that trophies couldn't silence. And that night, when Georgina slipped into that same car, her eyes didn't see Ronaldo, the legend, they saw Cristiano, the man who hadn't slept properly in weeks, who ate alone, who sometimes wondered if his fame was a prison. He'd built brick by brick himself. He didn't trust easily, fame had taught him never to. Beautiful faces came and went, empty laughter echoing in hotel suites and luxury yachts. But Georgina was strangely quiet that night. She didn't compliment him, didn't beg for selfies, didn't ask about his next goal. She sat there, hands folded in her lap, her heart beat louder than the hum of the engine. And when he finally asked her what she wanted, money, fame, a night she could boast about to her friends, she looked into his tired eyes and said something he had never heard before. "I want to see who you are when you're not pretending to be him." Those words burrowed into him like a splinter under the skin. They festered all night. For the first time in years, he found himself asking, who was he without the roar of the crowd? The glittering lights, the brand deals, the perfect smile that made billions. He didn't have the answer, but Georgina, in her silence, was ready to find it with him. That first night didn't end in a hotel room. It ended in the quiet corners of a city that never really saw Ronaldo like that. Just a man walking next to a girl who didn't care if the cameras were watching. They slipped through alleyways, laughing about things too small for headlines. She made him hold her hand, a simple thing. But for a man whose hands always held the weight of a nation's expectations, it felt like freedom. But change is never gentle. Ronaldo's circle hated her at first. His managers whispered, "She's after your money." His friends smirked, "She's just another face like the rest." But Georgina did something no one else ever did. She stayed. When the rumors twisted her name, she stayed. When tabloids spat venom at her family, she stayed. When Ronaldo's own ego lashed out at her in midnight arguments fueled by fears he couldn't name, she stayed. She stayed because she knew something he didn't, that behind every fortress is a lonely king terrified of being human again. And slowly, brick by brick, she tore that fortress down. She didn't do it with grand gestures, no roses scattered on yachts, no diamond rings flashing for the paparazzi. She did it in small ways, waking up before him to brew the coffee exactly the way he liked, whispering soft reminders that it was okay to miss his father, teaching him that sometimes real strength is in letting someone else see you cry. The man who once slept with his phone clutched like a weapon now left it face down when they were together. The man who once cared more about the next headline than the last conversation now sat for hours listening to her talk about her fears, her tiny human fears that no one had time for in his diamond world. In return, he found a quiet bravery he had buried under layers of gold medals and million-dollar smiles. Their fights were epic, the kind that could shatter glass if walls could talk. Ronaldo's temper was infamous. Georgina, soft-spoken to the world, had fire when she needed it. She called him out when no one else dared. She reminded him he was not untouchable, that love would not bow to trophies or be bought with gifts. She would leave, she warned him once, if he ever treated her heart like a prize instead of a promise. He believed her. That was what terrified him and healed him all at once. People think change happens overnight. But with them, it was 1,000 small deaths and rebirths. Ronaldo learned to say sorry, a word he used to spit out like poison. He learned to switch off his phone. He learned to play with his children without checking his reflection in the mirror. And Georgina, she learned that love with a man like him was never ordinary. It was a battlefield she chose every morning. It was rumors she ignored, headlines she laughed at, lies she forgave because the truth in his eyes mattered more than the noise outside. There were nights when they almost broke, nights when Ronaldo's old self clawed back, the cold arrogance, the dismissive silences, the nights out that tasted like betrayal even if they weren't. Georgina would pack her bags in silence. But he'd find her before the door shut behind her. He'd stand there, the legend, the king, the invincible Ronaldo, begging in whispers only she would ever hear, "Don't go. I can't be him again without you." And so she stayed, not because she was weak, but because she was strong enough to know that some men don't need to be saved. They need someone brave enough to stand in the storm with them. Georgina became his storm and his calm after. She didn't change him like a sculptor chisels marble. She changed him like the ocean smooths jagged stones, slowly, patiently, endlessly. When the world sees them now, they see glamour, private jets, designer gowns, golden children laughing in luxury villas. They don't see the nights Ronaldo still wakes up gasping from dreams he doesn't talk about. They don't see Georgina wrapping her arms around a man who conquered the world but still fears losing himself. They don't see the raw, quiet vows whispered in the dark. "I'm still here. I'm not going anywhere. I am yours when the lights go out." So how did Georgina change Ronaldo? She didn't change the legend, she freed the man. And in doing so, she found her own freedom too. Because behind every powerful man is not just a woman who supports him. Sometimes she's the only reason. He remembers who he was before the world told him who to be. Even as the years passed, Georgina remained the single constant in a life built on shifting sands. The world outside could change, managers could come and go, fans could turn cheers into jeers, but at home, behind the tall iron gates and tinted glass, Ronaldo had found something rarer than trophies. He had found surrender. The kind only a man who has won it all can give, when he admits to himself that all he really wants is to come home to someone who knows how to hold him when he is broken. There were nights when Georgina would watch him from the bedroom door, standing there, half in shadow, seeing him hunched over in the study, replaying a missed goal for the 1000th time, blaming himself with the same obsession that made him a god to millions. She never told him to stop. She never tried to fix the parts of him that the world worshipped, but that ate him alive. She would wait, always, for him to look up, eyes burning with the same old fire. And she would smile, that small, patient smile that said, "I know who you are when you stop fighting the ghosts." He never said thank you. Not with words, at least. He would say it with a hand reaching for hers under the table, with a kiss pressed to her forehead in the quiet mornings before the kids woke up, with a secret look that told her, "Of all the crowds I've played for, I'd trade them all to come home to you." That was her medal. Not a ring too big for her finger, not a designer gown flashed for gossip pages, but the man himself. Unmasked, all edges and flaws. His greatness no longer just his, but hers, too. Sometimes, when the world saw them at galas and red carpets, people wondered if she missed her old life, the life where she was invisible, where no one measured her every breath, every dress, every step next to a legend. But she never missed it, because what they didn't know was that before Ronaldo, there was an emptiness she couldn't name, a girl half lost in the glitter. She could only stare at through windows she couldn't afford to enter. Now, she lived inside the castle people once thought she could never touch. And yet, even with all the diamonds and dresses, she stayed the same girl who sat quietly in that car, all those years ago. The girl who asked him who he really was when the lights went out. Their children grew, and with them, the world's fascination only deepened. Reporters wanted scandals, hungry for a slip, a betrayal, a secret lover, a bitter fight. But the real secret was that the real story was never scandalous enough for tabloids. The truth was too ordinary, too unmarketable, that sometimes, the greatest drama in a man's life isn't who he scores with off the pitch, but who he chooses to hold in the dead of night when the world's eyes are closed. Georgina knew it wouldn't last forever. Not the money, they had more than enough, but the man who was bigger than life. Every day he trained harder, pushing his body past what was humanly possible. She knew the day would come when he wouldn't be able to outrun time, when the roar of the stadium would fade, when the cameras would linger a little longer on the next golden boy, and her king would no longer be the center of the world's obsession. That was the final test of their love, because she wasn't with him for the gold. She was with him for the quiet that would follow when the world finally let him go. She imagined them older, him grumbling about his knee, her nagging him to eat less sugar. Both of them laughing at memories no one else would ever know. She dreamed of a life where the greatest applause came not from a packed stadium but from the sound of their children's feet pounding down the hallway at dawn. And when that day finally came, when Ronaldo stood on a stage, holding back tears, as he thanked the fans, the clubs, the coaches, the game that made him immortal, Georgina stood in the wings. No cameras caught her wiping her eyes. No headlines captured the way he looked at her first, before he looked at the millions. He didn't say her name out loud, not in the speech. He didn't need to. His eyes said it for him. You changed me. You saved me. You are the only thing they can't take away from me. Years later, people will tell stories about him. The goals, the rivalries, the records that will stand for decades. But in the hush of their home, in the laughter of their children, in the quiet of shared mornings when the world no longer demands his greatness, the truest record will live a man who gave everything to a game, and found himself in the eyes of a woman who asked for nothing except the truth. In the end, that's how Georgina changed Ronaldo. Not with scandal or sacrifice, not by demanding to be the queen beside a king, but by showing him that underneath all the gold and glory, the boy he once was, the hungry, scared boy who ran barefoot through the streets of Madeira, was still enough to be loved, enough to be forgiven, enough to be saved. And maybe that is the greatest goal he ever scored, not the one that made the world cheer, but the one that made him human again.